12.1c, find values of trig functions for acute angles. Find missing sides and angles of right triangles. Let's take a look at some new information that you didn't have in geometry. There are actually 6 trig functions, not 3. And the additional 3 functions are really reciprocals of the first 3. So this is called the cosecant. This is brand new. And the ratio is hypotenuse over opposite, which is the reciprocal of sine. The reciprocal of cosine is what we call secant, theta. And again, it's the reciprocal of cosine. And then our third one is cotangent, and that is the reciprocal of tangent, adjacent over opposite. All right, let's take a look at doing this and finding all 6 of these trig functions. So we're going to do it for angle G. So here's angle G right here. And we're going to find the sine of G, and the sine of G is opposite 24 over hypotenuse. And I'm just going to assume we can reduce. You can do that later. The cosine of G is equal to, cosine is adjacent, which is 32 over 40. And the tangent of G is the opposite over the hypotenuse. Now I'm going to change color, and now we're going to do the reciprocal functions, which is cosecant, and we're going to do G, and this is a reciprocal. It will be 40 over 24. And the reciprocal of cosine is secant, G, and that's going to be 40 over 32. And then the cotangent of G, which is 32 over 24. And so here's how you find the 6 functions. Okay, your turn, pause, and here's the answer. All right, let's go ahead, and we're given that the tangent of A is 5/3, and we'd like to find the cosecant. Okay, so the first thing we ought to do is draw a picture of this relationship in a right triangle. So this is angle A, and remember tangent is opposite, which is 5, over adjacent, which is 3. And we'd like to find the cosecant of A. And remember, the cosecant of A is really the reciprocal of sine of A. So remember that sine of A is opposite over hypotenuse. So we want to do hypotenuse over opposite. Now, we don't have a hypotenuse right now, so we're going to have to use the Pythagorean theorem to do that. So that's going to be c squared is equal to 5 squared plus 3 squared. So EC is the square root of, this is 25 and 9, and that's 34. So this is root 34. So the cosecant of A is hypotenuse, which is root 34, divided by the opposite side of angle A, and angle A is 5. And so this is the cosecant of A. Your turn. And here's the answer. All right, we like to find the sine, cosine, and tangent of our special triangles, and we don't like to use the calculator. We like to actually find the exact values, and this is for the 45, 45, 90. So when we want to find the sine of 30 degrees, remember we have this relationship of x root 3, 2x. You could also consider it just 1, root 3, and 2 if you want a very simple version here. 1, 1, and root 2. And so when we're taking the sine of 30, it's the opposite over the hypotenuse. And then the cosine of 30 will be adjacent over hypotenuse. And then tangent will be the opposite over adjacent, opposite over adjacent. And when you rationalize, you will get this answer. And if I want to figure out the sine of 60 degrees, that's opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse for cosine, and tangent will be opposite over adjacent. Now we could do the same thing for 45, 45, 90. Okay, so we would like to find the missing side. Now to find the missing side, probably we should just go back to the first screencast. When you understand it's a 30, 60, 90, that means this is the ratio. And we know that the hypotenuse is 12. And this is opposite the long leg, and the long leg is what we're wanting to find. We're not trying to find the short leg. But, no but, I guess we can just go ahead and solve. This answer is just a 6. So if we go ahead and go x over root 3 is equal to 6, 6 over 1, we can cross multiply and we get 6 root 3. Some of you could have figured that out without doing that, because the short leg will be 6, and then you know that the long leg is 6 root 3. Some of you can do this in your head. Pause, and here's the answer. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at finding the missing side. Finding the missing side, and let's see, we have this angle, we have an adjacent, and we have a hypotenuse. So when we think about SOHCAHTOA, this sounds like a cosine. Cosine of 76 degrees is equal to 200 over d. Okay, now when I do proportions like this, I know that when I cross multiply right here, when I cross multiply, I'm going to get this answer. And so I know that in proportions, I can rewrite this as d over 1 is equal to 200 over cosine of 76. I know that anything on the diagonal can be reversed, because when I still multiply, I'll still get this d cosine of 76, and I cross multiply. The reason this is an advantage is now I know what d is. D is equal to this, and I can just go to my calculator, and I'm going to clear, and I'm going to put 200 divided by cosine of 76, and now I get my d to be 826.7. 826.7 is equal to d without doing a whole lot of algebra. Okay, I'd like to figure out the missing angle, and I have all 3 sides, so you can use any of the trig functions you want. I think I'll just go ahead and use a, and I think I'll just use sine. So sine of a is equal to 9 over 17. Now to figure out angle A, remember I have to do that inverse of 9 over 17. Then I'm going to go to my calculator, and I'm going to do second sine 9 divided by 17. And my angle is about 32 degrees. So, oh, it's set to the tenths. And so, yep, it's still going to round to about 32 degrees. So this is about 32.0 degrees. When I round to the tenths, it's still going to be 0. Pause. Here's the answer. Let's talk about angle of elevation and angle of depression. An angle of elevation and angle of depression actually are the same size, because these are what we call alternating interior angles for 2 parallel lines, because the horizon is and this are going to be parallel to each other. So these are parallel, and angle of elevation and angle of depression are equal. Okay, where can we see these problems? Well, right here, this is an example of an angle of depression right here. And we are trying to find how deep this is. So we're trying to find x. So notice that we have an opposite and we have a hypotenuse. So this is a good candidate for sine. Sine of 37 is equal to x over 500. And then I'm just going to go over 1 and cross multiply. So 500 sine of 37. I'm going to put that in my calculator. So that's 500 sine of 37. And so it looks like it's 300.9 miles. 300.9 miles is how deep it is. Your turn. And here's the answer.